So the Kansas City Chiefs are a little bit with their backs up against the wall, looking to rebuild things, I think, in the course of a single off season as they are strapped with cash and they are strapped in the NFL draft with limited picks, though they do have 4 picks in the top 100. One of the sneaky tools. So one of the things that Brett Veach has been very good about in his NFL GM tenure is the free stuff. UDFAs are essentially free. You don't have to invest a draft pick in them. You don't have to trade for them. You don't have to sign them as big money free agents. A UDFA is when a player goes undrafted. They are allowed to sign with any team. Brett Veach has made very good use of that ability where all of a sudden the NFL is flooded with tons of free agents, many of whom not every team has scouted, right? You only have so many scouts, you only have so many hours. So they do their work there, and they have had UDFAs make the team every year. They have had UDFAs as core special teamers every year, and they have had UDFA play actual, meaningful reps on either and or the offense or defense. One sneaky way that the Kansas City Chiefs can claim something when they are likely to lose many of their free agents is to franchise tag one of them and work out a trade. The danger is, if you don't find a trading partner, don't find the right trading partner, all of a sudden you're left with a player who is making mega bucks. For example, Trey Smith plays offensive guard. If you franchise tag Trey Smith, all of a sudden you have to pay him the average of the top 5 players at his position. But that's not exactly how it works. For an offensive guard gets thrown into the offensive line bucket. So you're paying Trey Smith the average of the top 5 highest paid offensive linemen in the NFL. I haven't checked, but likely all 5 of those players will be left tackles. So the salary number on a franchise tagged offensive lineman is likely to be in the upper $20 million range. You cannot afford that for Trey Smith, but what you can do is you can tag the guy, you can work out a trade partner, and those two parties, Trey Smith, for example, and his new team, get to work out the details of a new contract. They, whoever you're trading him to, does not have to pay Trey Smith the franchise tag money. There are 3 players we're going to talk about and different scenarios in this video, but I want to introduce it here. In an article titled NFL Franchise Tag Candidates, What is Each Team's Best Option in 2025 from USA Today by Nate Davis, we get the following. The 2-week window for NFL teams to apply the franchise tag to pending unrestricted free agents, UFAs, opened Tuesday. Among stars with expiring contracts, the tag is often an unpopular mechanism as it hinders or completely eliminates the ability to negotiate with other clubs during free agency. And while the 1-year tag pays well, generally speaking, its value is based on the average of the top 5 salaries at each player's respective position. It doesn't offer the security of a long-term contract and prevents players from approaching the top of their financial market. Though for some, typically players not drafted in the first round, the tag is a welcome windfall, and they've outperformed their rookie contract. Yet tags can also be a precursor to a trade or simply a placeholder that allow a player and his camp more time to hammer out long-term arrangements. See Lamar Jackson circa 2023. However, when those outcomes don't materialize, they can lead to a missed training camp, occasional early season absences, or, like in the infamous case of former Steelers star Le'Veon Bell, skipping a whole campaign and an entirely altered career arc. Consequently, Buyers tend to be leery, especially considering, as the Jackson case ostensibly proved, other teams are apparently completely unwilling to part with 2 first-round picks, the cost to lure away a franchised player. As all 32 teams mull their tag options preceding the 4 p.m. Eastern Time deadline on March 4th, here's a bit of advice for each. Notes salary cap projections courtesy Over the Cap, teams listed alphabetically, etc. They have for the Kansas City Chiefs listed, they have several key players on expiring deals: linebacker Nick Bolton, guard Trey Smith, and safety Justin Reid. What they don't have is cap room, or, as their failed three-peat highlighted, a serviceable left tackle or sufficient pass rush depth. I don't know what this last part is talking about. I don't remember having watched that game. Now, what I wanted to do from this point was take each of those names and look up sort of where that individual is sort of expected to land in free agency. It doesn't always work out, but it gives us some place to argue from. In an article titled 2025 NFL Free Agency 5 Best Fits for Kansas City Chiefs Offensive Lineman Trey Smith from the 33rd Team by Tyler Brook, one of the landing destinations was the Chicago Bears, and I think that does make sense because of Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles spent last offseason adding as many weapons as possible for rookie quarterback Caleb Williams. But what the team really needs is a reliable offensive line to make things easier for the former number 1 overall pick. No quarterback in the NFL took more sacks in 2024 than Williams. On top of a league-leading 68 sacks, he had the highest pressure to sack ratio in the league among quarterbacks, with at least 400 dropbacks, getting sacked on 28.2% of his pressures. Williams spent too much of the 2024 season focusing on making plays, which ended up hurting the offense more than it helped. A more stable offensive line, along with genius offensive mind in new head coach Ben Johnson, could fix those problems. The Chicago Bears have the 6th most cap space in the league this offseason, so they can afford to make a strong offer to a player like Smith to start filling out their offensive line. So, I wanted to look at what draft capital the Bears have. Trey Smith is often listed in these sort of articles as the second biggest free agent to hit the market, second behind only T. Higgins from the Bengals, who is ostensibly a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. What is Trey Smith's trade value? Sort of the downside to this is the downside with all of these players that the Kansas City Chiefs could hypothetically tag and trade. They all play positions of low positional value: offensive guard, middle linebacker, and safety. These are not the wide receiver position, the quarterback position, the cornerback position, the defensive end position. These are positions where teams regularly find later round starter level guys in the NFL draft. That said, Trey Smith being the second best free agent, not just offensive line, not just offensive guard, second best free agent, according to several of these publications, does make this interesting. Now, the Bears here, the interesting thing about where the Bears are is that the Bears have 2 second-round picks. They have the 10th overall pick in the first round, the 40th overall pick in the second round, the 42nd overall pick in the second round. Those are both very high second-round picks. They have the number 74 overall selection. They have no pick in the 4th round. They have their picks in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 7th rounds are yet to be determined. I think this is because of coin flip scenarios. You're looking at the Steelers, Browns, and Bengals. How they got picks from all of the Steelers, Browns, and Bengals is interesting. But the Bears I don't think you're definitely not getting the 10th overall pick. You're probably not getting the 40th or 42nd overall pick. Does this include a scenario where the Kansas City Chiefs trade up with their second round pick? So you're trading Trey Smith and your second for the 42nd overall and maybe a 7th, something like that. That would be interesting. I think that the most interesting scenario when you're looking at all of these players is the third round. The Kansas City Chiefs have the second pick in the third round. The Kansas City Chiefs have the second to last pick in the third round. These are the third round is not as target-rich an environment as the first round, obviously. The players that normally sneak into the second round, if you start to look at trends in the NFL draft, at the top of the second round, you've kind of got guys who were passed over but are first-round talents. After that, you have two things that pop up. Either guys that have one extreme trait. They're an offensive lineman who's 6'7" with 35-inch arms. They're a wide receiver who runs a 4.2 40. That's kind of one side of it. Or they're guys who were incredibly productive at the college level. First rounders, normally both of those things have to be in play. You have to have tools, you have to have productivity. If extreme examples can sneak in without one or the other. In the second round, you get the sort of tools of extreme on one end or the other, but in the third round, what normally kind of happens is you start to equalize and find good football players. Maybe they ran a 4.55 40. Maybe they're 5'10 instead of 6'1. But a lot of times in that third round, you've got guys who produced solid football at the college level, and they need to prove it at the NFL. Having 3 picks in the third round would not be the worst thing to ever happen to the Kansas City Chiefs, for sure. Especially, like we're talking about here, you would be getting these picks for free because you don't have the ability to re-sign Trey Smith. You don't have the ability to re-sign Justin Reid. You don't have the ability to re-sign Nick Bolton. You are basically just claiming a draft pick off of their backs. It's a nasty business, but somebody's got to do it. So having a third round pick would give the Chiefs 3 in the third, 1 in the second, 1 in the first. And I think, so maybe I shouldn't go into this here because it's just convoluting things. That first round pick, no part of me believes that the Kansas City Chiefs will be picking at 31. Will they trade up? Maybe. It depends on how the draft board is falling. I think, and now I've said this for years in a row now, so by all means, do not listen to me. I think the more likely scenario is that the Kansas City Chiefs trade back to pick up picks. The Kansas City Chiefs are in a very precarious position with this roster, and unless a left tackle or an elite wide receiver falls to them at 31, or maybe not elite wide receiver, but look, it's possible Luther Burden is there. Nobody likes to hear it. Everybody thinks I'm crazy when I say it. If Luther Burden peels off a 4.51 40-yard dash, he's not going in the top 15. I promise you. The Missouri offense this season was too sporadic. Now, that was because of the quarterback, in my opinion. Luther Burden had nothing to do with that sporadicity. But Luther Burden, his reputation took a hit. You look at the history of players falling in the draft, 1,000% it's possible, especially if one of these other guys, look, there's a couple wide receivers that are probably likely to go ahead of Luther Burden, but there's a couple guys who are kind of fringe first round guys right now. If one of them rips off a 4.33 40, guess what, baby? Luther Burden could fall. Anyway, I lost where I was. So the Kansas City Chiefs could tag and trade Trey Smith I think you can get a third round value out of an offensive guard like Trey Smith. It's rough because you hear that and you think it's the second best free agent, right? And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think you're getting a first round pick. I don't think you're getting a second round pick. Let's move on to Nick Bolton. In an article titled Jets Should Make Aggressive Push to Sign Two-Time Super Bowl Champ from Heavy.com by Paul Esden, we get the following. Bolton is the right type of player to invest in during free agency. The two-time Super Bowl champion is only 24 years of age and is scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason. Bolton entered the league as the number 58 pick in the second round of the 2021 NFL Draft. During his 4 seasons in the pros, Bolton has racked up over 458 total tackles, 32 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and 17 quarterback hits, not to mention like 30 game-sealing interceptions. Absolutely wild. A couple of game-winning fumble recoveries for touchdowns. The guy has a phenomenal ability to be around the ball. Just incredible. Pro Football Focus projects Bolton to sign a 4-year deal for $60 million with $40 million of that guaranteed. That $15 million annual salary would rank him number 4 among the highest paid linebackers in football per over the cap. Bolton is still incredibly young, has championship hardware, and could be a centerpiece of Aaron Glenn's defense for many years to come. Just like with Trey Smith, and I did not talk about this with Trey Smith, signing Trey Smith or Nick Bolton gives you an automatic jump in the fan base. The media will be talking about this all offseason. This sounds nonsensical from sort of the business, from sort of the X's and O's perspective of football, but from the business perspective of football, that is a very real thing. The Jets have a first rounder, a second or third rounder, conditional with the Raiders, a third rounder with the Jets, a third rounder from the Lions, fourth rounder from the Jets, fifth rounder of the Jets, fifth rounder of the Steelers. The Steelers traded everything. I don't understand what's going on here. A round 6th pick and our 6th round pick. I believe that is from the McCole Hardman trade. Now, again, you're not getting a first round pick for Nick Bolton. I don't think you're getting a second round pick for Nick Bolton. The third round pick here from the Jets would be the Lions' third round pick. This was sort of an older article, so it doesn't have the numbers with them. The third round pick from the Lions is likely to be very late. The thing that makes it interesting with the Jets here, because I don't know if you're getting a third round pick for a middle linebacker. I just don't. The trade market is either hot or cold. It depends on the season. I sound like I'm talking crazy and throwing feathers into the wind, but honestly, look at it. There are some seasons where you can't trade a quarterback for flight peanuts, right? This 5th round and 2 5th round picks, 2 6th round picks. Do I think you want to trade Nick Bolton for a 5th and a 6th round pick? I don't think you want to. Would you rather get a 5th and a 6th round pick out of Nick Bolton than nothing at all? Yeah, absolutely. 5th and 6th round picks. So Brett Veach has a history of turning these into starting players, but it is very likely that you can find a starting offensive guard. It is very likely that you can find a starting middle linebacker with 5th or 6th round picks. Trey Smith was the 6th rounder, for example. So if you were to trade Nick Bolton for 2 picks, a 5th rounder and a 6th rounder, all of a sudden that becomes a lot more tempting from the perspective of the Kansas City Chiefs. And then finally, in my opinion, the least likely of all of these, tagging Justin Reid. In an article titled 49ers Free Agent Profiles, Justin Reid is the mentor Malik Mustafa needs, subtitled, we explain why Justin Reid fits the mold of a Robert Saleh safety from Niners Nation by Kyle Posey. We get the following. A veteran to show Mustafa how to watch film, take care of your body, and practice the right way. The same is true for Jair Brown. Talanoa Hufanga is an unrestricted free agent coming off of his rookie contract. Tayshaun Gibson is an unrestricted free agent. George Odom is a special teams ace but doesn't have the playing experience. Reading into the situation. Justin Reid does. Reid turns 24 in February. I don't think that's correct, is it? Reid's not 24 years old, is he? The former third-rounder from Stanford has arguably gotten better each year since entering the league in 2018. Availability should be at the top of the 49ers' priority list this season. Reid has missed 3 games in the previous 3 seasons with the Kansas City Chiefs. Not only does Reid play special teams for Kansas City, but 47% of his defensive snaps came in the box at safety, so that'd allow Mustafa to play free safety again. So, again, that's not to say Reid is limited to playing in the box. He has 177 snaps at slot corner, including 11 in the AFC Championship game. He is versatile because he can excel at multiple positions, not just line up there. And then we have the list of picks from the 49ers. Again, Justin Reid's 28. So it was, I imagine, February 15th. So, yeah, he just turned 28. Here are the picks for the 49ers. They have the 11th overall pick, the 43rd overall pick, the 75th overall pick, a compensatory pick in the 3rd round, a 4th round pick, 5th round pick, 7th round pick from the Panthers. Now, here's what's interesting about that 3rd round pick for the 49ers. Number one, it's compensatory. So the 49ers were not banking on having that pick. Oftentimes, since the compensatory picks became tradable, teams are more likely to deal compensatory picks because they weren't really banking on having it. It's sort of salt on the top of the salad. Here's another thing about that compensatory pick. Compensatory picks in the 3rd round are after all of the other selections. So you have here a basically 4th round pick that does take place before everyone else gets tabs on another player. Do I think you could trade Justin Reid for a 3rd round pick in the middle of the season? I do not. Do I think you could trade Justin Reid for a compensatory pick before the NFL draft? I think that is highly more likely. I don't think Justin Reid is a 3rd round pick sort of player. I think that teams have started valuing draft picks a little bit more in the recent years, especially with the new rules around the salary cap. But if you have a spot that you can nab a starter prior to the draft, work out your contract, he does become a mentor for the Malik Mustafas of the world, a consummate professional. I think even if the Chiefs have to throw in one of their later round picks to get into that 3rd round discussion for Justin Reid, might not be a home run sure thing, but I think that it does become more digestible if you are the 49ers. Justin Reid is not a flashy player, but he plays a lot of reps. He starts for the Kansas City Chiefs. He would start for the San Francisco 49ers. If you told any team right now, so 36996 is the 3rd round. If you told any team in the NFL right now, you have a guaranteed starter at pick 107, 112, whatever that ends up becoming for that 3rd round compensatory pick, would you take it? You are trading or you are spending that draft pick on a 1, 2, or 3 year starter. Because again, they're going to be working out his contract prior to the trade. I think a lot of teams make that trade, especially teams that the 49ers fell on their face this year. But they've been to 2 Super Bowls very recently. I don't quite remember how those Super Bowls worked out for them, but they've been in the Super Bowl twice very recently, right? So this is a franchise that does not want to keep falling on their face. It's possible you spend that third-round compensatory pick on a player in the draft, and he's a 22-year-old starter for the franchise for the next 4 seasons. Maybe. Maybe not. You can get a guaranteed third-round starter in Justin Reid. So maybe that's too rich for Justin Reid. I am not quite sure. But these are interesting scenarios for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know that we will see this, but I think that it is Brett Veach has his back against a wall. He's trying to rebuild very fast, and there are free assets that he can just pluck off of the wall right now. And I kind of expect him to do it. I think this is going to be something that he does. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.